webcast, The Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn. My name's Emma Hewage and I look after marketing for LinkedIn's Marketing Solutions business in Europe, Middle East and Africa. And joining me today is my colleague John Lombardo, who is our content marketing lead and has a wealth of experience both of creating content marketing strategies but also advising our clients of all different sizes right across the EMEA region on the strategies and tactics that they should apply to help them make the best use of the LinkedIn platform for their own strategies. Before we started, just a couple of pieces of housekeeping. So in terms of timings and what you can expect from us today, John is going to present some content for about half an hour, and then we will turn it over to question and answers from anyone on the call at the end. By default, you're all muted throughout to make sure that there's no noise on the line and it's not distracting for other people. So as you have questions, please do enter them in the chat window in WebEx, and then turn over to Q&A at the end. We will work through as many of those as we can. Anything that we don't have time to answer on the call, we will try to follow up with you separately afterwards. And for housekeeping, before we get started, we will be sending out the slides that are being presented today within the next couple of days in an email. So please don't feel that you have to make too many notes, as the content will be coming your way shortly. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to John, who's going to take us through today's presentation.
Everybody, thanks for joining the webinar today. We are, as Emma said, going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, the context of LinkedIn. Then we're going to talk about creating what we call big rock content, which is an asset that can serve as a cornerstone to your content marketing strategy and then fuel a lot of your all-on and demand gen efforts. We're going to talk about some of the specific elements of LinkedIn and how to utilize them to effect, and we'll close with some sort of final tips. Without further ado, I will now jump into the presentation. So the thing to understand about LinkedIn is sort of why are we talking about LinkedIn? And the reason we're talking about LinkedIn is that one of every 3 professionals on the planet is on LinkedIn. That means for you as a marketer is that you have conversations with through content. They're on our platform and they are in the professional mindset they're on LinkedIn. And so that they are investing time in their career, both at being better in the moment, but also better over time as they think about their career and sort of increasing the arc of that career, right? So you have an opportunity to have conversations, and this is a very exciting place to do it, particularly for B2B or what we call high consumer B2C, where people are taking longer periods of time to make decisions and considering their purchases before they make them. So this is the marketing opportunity for you, and a very exciting marketing opportunity. And our platform, people engage with content more than with jobs. And for a period of time, people perceived LinkedIn purely to be a job site. That is no longer true. In fact, the dominant interaction paradigm is now in the feed and through content. And you can see we get 7x the engagement with content that we do with jobs, right? And so in a world where content marketing is the way that you build relationships and you nurture relationships and you sell products and services, this becomes a great platform, of course, to put that content, nurture those relationships, and ultimately show the ROI that you need. And together, what we're becoming is what we call the definitive professional publishing platform. So really the dominant player in the professional space, where we're trying to educate people through content, to convince them of a position, to add value to what they do in their job, and to build relationships that deliver revenue in the short term and in the long term. But really this is sort of what LinkedIn hangs its hat on at the end of the day. Talk content a little bit. Of course, it's not just about content, it's about more relevant content. So you can see sort of with the animation here, you know, people are used to creating a lot of content, and we're going to advocate today is a strategy that allows you to do less with more, but to have more focus and to drive better results. So we care deeply about relevancy rather than just content. It's not enough to have content, you need to have relevancy, and we'll show you how to do that. And to support this point, this is a statistic that we love, which shows that people will consider ending the brand relationship with you if you do not produce relevant content, right? So most people think if you create content and you put it in front of people, then you've done your job. In many cases, if you create content and put it in front of people and not relevant, you can actually end the relationship rather than start the relationship. So one has to be thoughtful about what sort of content they put in front of someone, whether or not it's relevant to who they are and to what they do. And so, 44% of people say they will consider ending a brand relationship due to irrelevant content, and additional 22% say they will absolutely end the relationship. So more than 2/3 of your people will defect if you don't have relevant content. So today, we're going to talk again how we achieve that relevancy. The way that we think about content and producing relevant content that, again, can sort of be an asset to serve as a cornerstone for your content marketing efforts, we call it big rock content. And big rock content tends to focus on one key topic that is really critical to you and to your business, and then you create a bunch of content around that, which fuels all of either your content marketing or your demand generation efforts over the course of a quarter or even longer in some cases. What that looks like in practice is, for us, this is an example of big rock content, right? We want to own the conversation around how to be the most sophisticated marketer you can be on LinkedIn. And actually, it turns out a couple of years ago, we didn't own the conversation on how to most effectively and sophisticatedly market on LinkedIn. There were blogs that owned that conversation, so we decided this is our platform. We understand it more intimately than anyone else. We need to produce a piece of content that educates people definitively how to be the best marketer they can on LinkedIn, which is why we're having this conversation in the first place. In the course of creating that big rock content, what we did is we pulled all of the things that would matter around marketing on LinkedIn, and we pulled it in one big package. It's about 50 slides or 50 pages, and it consists of slide presentations, blogs, infographics, webinars, videos, right? The whole series of content, some online, even printed books. And then we use that content across all elements of LinkedIn, right? And there are 4 key elements to LinkedIn. You've got company pages, which are the hub on LinkedIn. You've got sponsored updates. Sometimes produce great content from your company page. You want that content paid budget in order to put it in front of more people who you think will appreciate that content, and then who appreciate that content will ultimately register for an event like the one today, or will download a piece of content, and then ultimately you can drive sales through that. There's also LinkedIn groups. That's where peer-to-peer conversations happen. This content is very valuable if you want to be a thought leader in a peer group. And then, of course, content does very well on SlideShare, and we'll talk later about the way that you need to blend visual marketing and textual marketing to get optimum results. Because you create one big piece of content, and then you sort of slice it and dice it into a smaller piece of content, then to fuel your efforts across all of LinkedIn and even other social channels. We're talking about this big rock piece of content, and again, it's going to be very relevant content, right? If you want to be the best marketer you can on LinkedIn, this is the piece of content. It's going to be inspirational. It's going to be something that people read and say, I will be the best marketer I can be, and now I know how to do it. It inspires me to go out and do my job. So it's sort of useful, relevant, and inspirational content. That is the equation for great content, for big rock content. Now that we've discussed that, let's talk about 3 ways you can create big rock content. So strategy, and I mentioned this very briefly, it's to create the all-encompassing guide to the conversation you really want to own. Again, we at LinkedIn didn't even own our own conversation around how to be the smartest marketer you can on LinkedIn. So what we did is we created our own content marketing guide, which is the one you're looking at on the screen, and something now that if you go look for LinkedIn and being a sophisticated marketer or just a marketer on LinkedIn, it appears top in the SEO rankings, right? And so, again, this is just whatever conversation you think you need to own. And often what it really does is it answers the questions that people have about your products and services. So you want to be useful, relevant, inspirational, helpful, right? Those are the things on LinkedIn. Number 1 for the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, our own version of big rock content. So this, of course, is a link if you'd like to download the entire guide. You'll also be getting this presentation at the end of this webinar. So You don't need to take notes on this, but it does exist online, and it does fuel a lot of our own demand generation efforts. So when we talk, I showed this the turkey before, right? In the turkey analogy, we then will take that guide and we will slice that and dice that, or repurpose that, and then repurpose that some more into multiple different forms of content. So what you have is having infographics, slide shares, mobile downloads, podcasts, webinars, blog content. We even go out and talk to influencers and interview them and get their takes on LinkedIn. Right? So the idea here is that you blend. People not always be ready to download your big rock piece of content that is gated, right? So what you do is you slice it and dice it into a number of different pieces of content, and then sort of start to use those as the content fuels your always-on content marketing strategy, right? So from our little sophisticated marketer's guide here, we actually got 17 blog posts from it, right? We have multiple slide shares. We have a physical book. We have webinars, and we do them in NAMER, North America, we do them in EMEA, we do them in APAC. So you can see one very focused piece of content that's all tied to driving business results, how it fuels an entire quarter or even more of your content marketing efforts. This is just doing less with more. I often tell people, have focus, pick a topic you care about, and produce just around that, rather than sort of a spray and pray approach. The focus really adds value in the end. And if you have this content, right, you've got your 17 blogs and your 4 slide shares, you've got 30, 40 pieces of content that is fueling your all-in content strategy. For a global organization, you can then take that global. So this is something that we have done in a number of our markets, which is to take it international. And so this ends up being something that is produced in one centralized location, that ends up fueling demand generation and revenue efforts across the globe. So again, this is something that if you have partners, they can help you do it. We do it on our own, but becomes a very nice way to stretch the value of that big piece of content. Now, the second strategy is one that you may be familiar with, is the tying blogs together to sort of form an ebook or to form, in our case, a big rock piece of content, which would be 30, 40 pages made. Right? It comes from a writer named Hugh MacLeod, and his strategy is he will write 17 blog posts typically that are tied to a unified theme, and then he'll package those up and make them into a little book, right? And so then he releases the book. So this is his way of writing books. Well, you can take that same approach and apply this to your content marketing. And this is, again, it's about repurposing. It's about doing more or less, right? And so if you have 5 blogs that are tied to a unified theme, and I'm sure that you do, and it's around a business topic that is important to business, that you want to be known for, and that you want to drive business through, what you do is you take 5 relevant blogs, you roll them together, and that becomes your ebook, and you can gauge that. So not only can you share the 5 blog posts over the course of a week or two, you can also have each blog post then direct back to the download, and that's the way to sort of fuel, again, your lead generation, your demand generation efforts. And with the right here, quite an intriguing graphic, but called the blogging food groups. We'll talk about this in a minute, but it talks about the way that you need to vary your content. You can't purely use blogs, right? You've got to use some visuals as well, whether that be SlideShare, use podcasts, any sorts of different marketing channels you have and different marketing formats to keep conversation fresh, right? People will get fatigued if you use the same thing. So there are ways to dress this up and make it a bit snappier. A quick word about blogs. Blogs are not the sexiest form of social media. They've been around for a while, but they're absolutely critical. They're critical not only because you place to house your content, but you also want to drive results. You need a page to push people to. You want to make sure you index highly in the Google rankings, right? So the blog is sort of what we call the social media rug that ties the room together. So don't overlook the value of the blog. And often you see that some more substantive stuff you'll post on your site, 1,500 words or higher, that stuff does exceptionally well on LinkedIn, the click-through, or even through Google. SEO Oz did a little research study looking at what it takes to rank in the first page of the rankings on Google, and they found that typically blog posts that have 1,500 to 3,000 words, they do very well, right? Because they're more substantive, more on thought leadership. And as I talked about earlier, LinkedIn is about a professional mindset. It's about educating yourself for sort of in the moment and over the arc of your career. And that you want thought leadership that helps to differentiate you and your opinions, look smart in front of your boss, make it look in front of your peers. The blog tends to be a great place to do that. Okay, so a little bit about what we call the blogging food groups now. So you can see a number of images here. Blogging food groups means you need sort of, think of it as a steady diet of content for your blog, but some of it is sort of lightweight and some of it is heavier weight. So, on one day, people are coming into the office, and you can think people coming into the office, they're ready to sort of have a lot of energy, right? They haven't worked any days yet. They have a lot of energy. They're ready to attack the week. And so you can typically give them something that is to chew on, we call it, sort of spinach, right? And spinach is, doesn't necessarily, it's good for you, but you've got to chew on it for a bit, right? So that's why it's called spinach. But it's a little bit, it's a lightweight piece of thought leadership that sort of gets people to appreciate your opinion or your perspective on a topic and buy into what you're thinking about, right? Today, maybe you produce something much more substantive. So Tuesday would be, we call a roast, right? And a roast is, it's a delicious topic. It's more than a meal. It might be the 1,500 to 3,000 words that you want to write about to really define or so to attach yourself to a specific thought leadership topic. But it's a big, meatier version of something like the spinach, right? Today we're getting a bit further into the week. You've got your Raisin Bran. Again, this light, quick meal you can have in the morning, and it makes an impact on your day, but not necessarily something that is going to, define. You think about a subject over time. It's more like a quick hit, right? Tabasco, right? Tabasco is a bit spicier. Maybe a topic that you pick from somebody else has written and you contradict it and you add a bit of spice to the conversation, or maybe you pit two people against each other and you ask them to debate a topic, but it's meant to mix things up and add an element of controversy, perhaps. People do enjoy controversy, and people do enjoy reading controversial opinions when, of course, tied to a business topic. You can't do it purely for the sake of being controversial and spicy, but it does add an element of intrigue to something you might put out on Thursday. You've moved towards the end of the week, and at the end of the week, people have worked 4 days already. They're a bit tired. They're sort of wrapping up the week, and so you want to give them something that is, it tastes great, easy to consume, and it leaves happy, heading for the weekend. And that's something we call sort of chocolate cake. That could be something simpler like an infographic or a visual update of fact. I mean, something simple that, again, is attached to your business priorities, but is very simple and delicious, like a piece of chocolate cake. And then if you are doing stuff over the weekend, typically, again, you don't want it to be too heavyweight because people aren't necessarily looking to be fairly professional on the weekends. They like to have a bit of personal time, but you can give someone, something like the spinach again, which is, something to sort of to chew on over the weekend before they come back in for another week. So that's a way to think about varying sort of the format and even the topics for your content, right? Because you do need to keep things fresh and keep people interested. You can't feed people spinach every single day. Now, third idea, which you can use to produce big rock content, comes from a company called Pantheon, and Pantheon is a technology provider in San Francisco, and what they've done is they have traditional case studies, and the case studies, are typically further down the funnel, mid-bottom funnel. They've taken those case studies, and rather than asking you to download them each individually, what they've done is they've packaged all of them up into a collection of sort of success stories. And what they've done is they now have an ebook which has 5 or 10 of these amazing Drupal launches. So again, the sort of case studies we all produce and like to use, but they've written a single blog post on every one of these. So again, we have is this big rock piece of content, which is 5 to 10 of these launches, and downloaded, or it's a gated downloadable piece of content. But each one of the launches is also described in a blog post, a story of the launch with some interviews from some of the. At the bottom it says, if you want to read all about all of our launches, download the ebook. Again, so it's something that becomes a big rock piece of content. Involves the launches, some customer interviews, some other information they have, and they package it up and use it. So again, one way to do more with less. Now let's talk a little bit about how you turn the big rock content into compelling updates, right? How do you get people to engage and to talk about it and to share? So you've got to keep in mind that although you are the marketer and you are the person who makes all the decisions, actually it's your audience that really makes the decisions, right? What you're trying to do is produce content that puts your audience at the center, right? So your content always has to be about them and not about you. Don't let your ego get in the way of your content marketing efforts. Really simple strategies to do this. Number one, call out your audience on the actual post. So in this case, you see a post from cyber coders, and this is directly addressed to CTOs. So if you see this, it's almost like you're having a personal conversation. You feel valued, and as a CTO, you will think about these questions next time you hire someone. So a post that addresses the audience, using the word you, again, it puts the person at the center of the content, right? So this is Citibank asking, did you know that the majority of communication is nonverbal, right? And then giving you a way to use that to your own benefit, right? And then finally, Down University, again, putting the user at the center. If you come to this event and you take this master's program, we will make you a better leader, right? And so again, I understand that if I go do that, I become a better leader. So as long as you focus on how the content you're producing adds value to your audience, you will see success, right? And a lot of times you can use using personas, or keyword research or interviews with clients to really get to the core of what they care about, what questions they have about your products and services, what questions they have about the industry. And if you do sorts of things, right, if you're a bit anthropological in your research, you'll start to figure out what things people care about. Then you produce the content about those topics, and it will absolutely be centered on what's important to them. Here's sort of a quick update on how to optimize content for company updates. We'll look at some examples of company updates in a minute, but you just want to sort of make a quick note of this beforehand. When you produce company updates, it's important to make sure you optimize the content, right? So again, like, why would my audience care about this? Why headline, why grab me, right? It's got a very strong visual attached. It's so important to make sure that the actual text and the visual, they match each other, they reference each other, they're short, they're compelling, they're snappy. Don't use stock images, don't use stock language. And then, make sure that you manage those updates so they're going out 1 or 2 a day. They're going to the right audiences. Make sure you run it through the weekend because people with mobile devices do tend to online on LinkedIn and other platforms, of course, during the weekends. And then, where necessary when managing excellent updates, make sure you put paid media behind that to show it to more people. So now talking a little bit about sort of when you've produced great content and you want to show it to more people. This is sort of, you have a big rock piece of content, right? You're proud of it. But it's more than just a big rock piece of content. It's actually a big rock piece of content with Richard Branson's Necker Island on top, right? It's exceptional. Your audience loves it. And often we see that organic success is the predictor of paid success, right? And so this is what I think about, how do I take this big rock and introduce it to more people because it's Necker Island and everyone's going to be impressed by it, right? So this you would use sponsored updates. Sponsored it's our paid product, and it is a product that's just in the feed. It's a native ad, so it looks just like the other content, just has a little sponsored note there. And it's our fastest growing product in LinkedIn's history. So it is the way that you would reach people in the feed with your great content, right? And so you can use sponsored updates to a number of business goals, right? So if you think the top of the funnel, you could just create simple brand awareness, right? If you think back to example about Pantheon, they're trying to talk about amazing Drupal launches. Well, they're just driving brand awareness around their success stories, and then it's people associating them, particularly developers and agencies, associating them with the company that helps you to do an amazing Drupal launch. Once you have brand awareness, then you can sort of put a couple of those pieces of content out, and you can expand your thought leadership, right? So brand awareness and thought leadership are a bit sort of at the top of the funnel, and to associate you with a topic, and then sort of extend your thought leadership around that specific topic. And then if you have 5 or 6 pieces of content out like that, then maybe you put out the ebook, and the ebook is about either, download this in order to, do the definitive Drupal launch, or attend our webinar to understand how to do the definitive Drupal launch. So there's balance between brand awareness and lead generation that is absolutely critical, and you need both. You need sort of content at all stages of the funnel, if you will. But those individual blog posts, then you have that tied up as one sort of downloadable post, and you get that balance between the brand awareness and then the sort of generation that you need to show ROI. So that is a way to use sponsored updates to put either the blog posts for brand or ultimately the downloadable gated piece of content in front of people and an audience that you would have that just follow you, right? I mean, sometimes they learn that through your content, IT professionals absolutely love your content, right? And so you only have a limited universe of IT professionals you're talking to. They're your followers. This is a way to take sponsored content and put it in front of a broader group of IT professionals. And we encourage you, when you use sponsored updates, to be targeted, right, and to focus on different segments, right? So when we did our sponsored updates for the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, right, we talked about, for example, we would say, for CMOs alone, CMOs care about sort of the business from a macro level and making sure everything's operating efficiently. So you might put out a sponsored update that says, down this to understand how these insights can drive, transformational change in your business, right? Now, if we are, and sort of you link again to the Big Rock piece of content with the tracking to make sure you're sort of keeping track of how many CMO leads you're driving. Now, another update, you might target this just to marketing directors, and you might say, do you need to demonstrate the ROI of your marketing efforts? If so, these insights can help. And of course, if you're a marketing director, you need to demonstrate the ROI of your marketing efforts, right? And you need to demonstrate the ROI to the CMO, right? So you can see how this all sort of plays together, and you market against a whole marketing department rather than just a specific group in it. That's a way sort of to drive interest from marketing directors. And then finally, if it's social media managers, this is more around, they are really tactical, they're in the weeds, they're making sure that they're optimizing the content, driving engagement. So this is more focused on what they care about. Again, if you think about this, each update is tailored to put that specific user with their specific job function at the center of the update. You will always see better results when you do that. And again, all of it links back to the Big Rock content. So multiple people in the organization are downloading this Big Rock piece of content. And we often see that multiple people in an organization will, in fact, download a piece of content. So don't think there's just one person that is going to download your content. Typically, multiple people we see will do that. And that's to a point on targeting. LinkedIn has extraordinarily good targeting. Again, if you think to your profile, we know who you are, we know where you work, we know the size of the company, we know what your role is, we know what your function is, we know a whole lot about you. But again, we see that it's groups sort of think, or committees that make decisions. And we have a nice piece of research on this called the IT committee, which shows that in terms of IT purchases, because now people are bringing mobile devices into the office, it's not just IT that goes out and does a deal with Microsoft and buys everything. It's actually people bring in the iPhone, and then the iPhone, IT, maybe it's not just Windows, maybe it's also Mac, right? And so this is changing the way that people think about what they buy. And so it's not just the CEO, it's the CEO, maybe the head of sales, right? Maybe people in PR. So keep in mind a variety of different people and a variety of different organizations are making decisions. So it's important to target, but make sure that you target against a number of different dimensions. You have enough scale to make sure you miss out on opportunities, right? Over-targeting can also mean you miss out on a lot of opportunities. So let's look at a couple of examples of sponsor updates and who's doing it right. Spot is the smartest marketers on the internet, if not the smartest marketer on the internet, and they are so encourage all of you to go and search, look at their updates, and sort of see what they do, and then model your behavior after them, and you'll see success. They use sponsor updates to 400% more qualified leads, right, than ever platform during the campaign they were running. That, of course, is going to get the attention of your CMO. That is going to justify the budget you have and make an argument for more budget, right? And so, again, if you think about it, everything they're doing here is sort of a best practice. They are talking directly to marketers. It's the 6 metrics your boss actually cares about. They've got a great image. They've got sort of matching text, and it all pushes to a download, right? So it's very well done. Kinvi is another partner of ours, and Kinvi is they did in sort of mobile application development, and sent out a survey, and the survey is excellent, and it talks about what other mobile app developers are interested in. People love to hear from other people, so peer-to-peer research does well. This event drove 38 more leads than other social channels, and a significant lower cost per lead. And we often, it's not just the initial cost per lead, but ultimately over time, people end up having higher lifetime value out of customers to LinkedIn again, because you're buying a very qualified audience. Now there's Adobe. Adobe's slightly different. If you think about the HubSpot example and the Kinvi example, those are really pure lead gen, demand gen examples. Adobe was more about driving thought leadership or how they can shape the future of digital marketing. So they produced a whole series of content. So they did a big rock piece of content, and it was essentially 3 days of content purely about marketing and marketing statistics. And they grouped it together into one big sort of download, and talked about the opportunities in marketing, stats, mobile stats. At the end of this campaign with us, we did some brand research, and it showed that US marketing executives, which again are a very competitive audience to get in front of, it showed that they were 50% more likely to agree that Adobe can shape the future of digital marketing, right? So that's thought leadership at work right there. That's a good example of how you use content to drive thought leadership. And again, this is something that your PR is going to be happy about, comms will be happy, marketing will be happy, ultimately will lead to more sales over time, and sales will be happy as well. Marketo has used sponsored updates specifically for event registration. So, they're very to the point about this. I mean, find sort of the text there. Don't bury the lead. Particularly in a mobile world, you cannot bury the lead. You've got to get to the point. So, in mobile, think more like 90 characters, not 90 words, right? And make sure that you sort of are focused on what the call to action is, right? Make sure there's something that the trigger that asks people to go take an action, right? If you don't do that, you're not going to get the sort of results that you need. But this is very well done too, right? It sort of creates a sense of urgency in any marketer to attend by saying, what you absolutely can't miss at the Marketo Marketing Nation Summit. Right? So again, if I don't go, I'm not going to be as smart a marketer as everyone else, and my business will fall behind. So it's a clever use of psychology. We have a product called direct sponsored content, and direct sponsored content is known as dark posting on another of other channels, but it allows you to A/B test content, so to personalize, right? So if you are, and we'll look at some examples of this, but you are wanting to talk just to people in San Francisco, you say, hey, San Francisco, or if you just want to B-test images or headlines, it allows you to do all of this, and it does not show up on your company page. So that's called dark posting. So it's a very clean and efficient way to A/B test different updates to see what does well. A couple of examples of what this looks like in practice. Citigroup used direct sponsor content to speak to entrepreneurs, right? Again, so calling out the audience. This is a location post. If you have an event in San Francisco, say, hey, San Francisco, hey, London, or hey, Brighton. Sure that you attend our event to learn how to do how to build a subscription business. And then finally, Ohio University, which is an online education program, right? They're talking specifically to healthcare, which is an industry, right? So again, if you personalize this, you run a bunch of different versions, you'll figure out what performs best. Here's an example of what results can look like. We produced 2 different updates. The only thing that is different is the headline. And you see in the second headline, selling cars will change everything. Yes, everything. They get 66% higher click rate. So this is the difference between your post reach your audience and your competitors' posts reaching your audience, right? Drives real results that again will help you justify your budget or argue for more budget. So this is sort of what best-in-class, sophisticated marketers are doing. It's not just content. It's not just big rock content. It's then A/B testing all of that to drive the best results you can. And this is something, again, that we talk sort of always on a lot. It's that you need to be always relevant, and the reason you need always relevant is people are online at every time during the day, right? So this is sort of from LinkedIn data, and it shows that people in the more sort of while they're waking up, then they're on their mobile basically all day. Then on the desktop, which is in red, sort of definitely early in the morning, and it tails off at night. And then when they get home, they get sort of onto their couch and are sort of leaning back, and they're looking at things on their tablet. So we call it sort of coffee to couch. But point that people are consuming more content than they ever have, and they're doing all points during the day. And so this is why you need to be produce always on content. So this means 1 to 2 pieces of content a day if you can. If you have more, do more. And then when your best content, make sure that you are sponsoring that to make sure that that really relevant, exceptional piece of content is always on and reaches people wherever they are. We've also sponsored InMails, which is a mobile optimized product. It's a one-to-one product. So if I send this to you, as you can see, red, is sending InMail. Comes from Inbox, which is like email on LinkedIn. So Red Hat, time to monetize your data center. Our platform is more than half mobile now. and we get higher open rates on mobile. So this becomes a way, if sponsored updates is sort of the air war, then email is the ground war, and you can use the two together to drive either brand awareness or lead generation or event registration, however you want to think about it. It looks like you get a message, and there's a learn more button where you can click through, or a register now button where you can click through. A word on mobile, since it is such an important topic. 70% of our clicks now come from mobile, so make sure that when you produce content, particularly lead or demand generation content, that you're tracking to try to attribute ROI, make sure you have optimized responsive landing pages that are optimized for mobile. If you don't, people are simply not going to fill out the form. You're going to lose very valuable leads that you would have otherwise had you optimized for mobile. And think about building mobile optimized landing pages. Consider the form itself. Marketo reports a 10 drop in CPLs when you shorten a form from 9 fields to 5 fields. So really make sure you only ask for what's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, again, you're just leaving opportunity on the table. A quick word, headlines, because headlines are absolutely critical. This is a lovely quote from David Ogilvy. He says, on average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. When you've written a headline, you've already spent 80 cents out of your dollar, right? And so we looked at this with direct sponsored content. If you test different variations of headlines, you see a dramatic lift in results. So make sure you take this seriously. Produce content and make sure it's better optimized, right? So that means less content, more variations, right? You'll have plenty of content to fuel your efforts. You'll just get the results, and it will last longer. It'll be more durable. Absolutely critical to think about the headline. It's not just the headlines, because we do not live in a text world. People process into something like 60,000 times faster than they process text. So make sure you pair the two together. If you think about the HubSpot example I showed you earlier, they've got an optimized headline and optimized image, right? So the visual is the new headline in some respects, right? I mean, consider the visual in this image. You've got a cat on a piece of bacon flying through space, right? That's not necessarily business, but think of what the business version of this is for you. Make sure you grab people's attention. You don't have much time to grab attention, so make sure you're optimizing the images to do that, and then you're also pairing a very nice headline so that you sort of make the sale. And visual marketing has been around forever, right? It's something that we've started to hear about a lot more increasingly in the last couple of years, though. It is really critical. It started with a guy named Fred Bernard, and he was actually a printer, and he was trying to encourage people to produce more images and more words so you could print more stuff. He was trying to get people specifically to do more image printing. So he had some text, but not enough image printing from businesses. And he produced Update, which is trying to sell some sort of widget, right? It looks like tires. It actually didn't do very well. This is about 1921. Didn't do very well, but he tried again in 1927. Again, he was making up his own content marketing, testing and learning, if you will. He came up with, this isn't even a real Chinese proverb, but he attached the word Chinese proverb to it instead of pictures worth 1,000 words, or worth 10,000 words. It's not true, but it did start to generate some interest in visual marketing, right? So this is, again, something that has been going on forever. It worked very well in print. Works very well online, so do take it seriously. He's a bit of a character. You can look into him if you want. But you can't, again, do just visual marketing. I mean, people are talking a lot about visual content marketing. It alone is not enough. You do have to pair the visual and the text together. A visual, we have the adage all the time, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Actually, a researcher a couple of years ago did this. He showed people pictures, and he needed people to describe what they saw in the picture. And it turns out that a picture is only worth 81.4 words and not 1,000. So number one, an interesting anecdote, but number two, visual marketing alone will not solve your content marketing challenges. It is not a content marketing strategy. It is an element to a content marketing strategy, right? But an important one. And so to that end, we have SlideShare, which is a vastly underused visual content marketing platform, and it's really around thought leadership for topics you want to own. SlideShare really does exceptionally well. Again, this is pretty much B2B content. This is, Peon again. We saw this content earlier. They actually took the content that they had from case studies, and they even made it into a bunch of slide shares. 20 slides, as you can see, with individual customer success stories. It gets 5,000 views. It does exceptionally well as a lead generation vehicle. It's visual thought leadership is really what it is, right? Again, LinkedIn is a professional mindset. People are educated. They want to be better at their job. This is a way to do visual thought leadership that helps to sort of satisfy the questions that they need to answer. Here's an example from Markel. Again, very much B2B. This is, it's B2B content, but it's part text, it's part visual. It does exceptionally well. They got 328,000 views from it. So do you ignore SlideShare as a marketing channel? Do not ignore it because it works across all of your other channels as well. Again, so this is, you produce one piece of content and you use it in multiple ways. So it's on your blog, it's on your landing pages, it's on LinkedIn. It can be embedded virtually anywhere you want. So keep in mind it works from a cross-channel perspective, right? It helps you get more for less. Lead forms as well, right? So if you have this content, they read through the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide and they say, actually, I do want to talk to somebody from LinkedIn. They can fill out their information at the end, and your salespeople can call them up right away, qualify them, and pass it on to sales. Of course, because it's SlideShare has actually produced a best practices guide on how to use SlideShare. You're going to get this deck, so I won't spend too much time here, but it just shows you how to optimize for SlideShare. What is success like? What does everything look like all together, right? So you've got this big rock piece of content, right? And you've sliced and diced it into 17 blog posts and 4 webinars and a podcast and interviews with experts, a checklist on what to do before you go live, and tips from LinkedIn experts. So you've got all this content. You fold it into this one big rock gated piece of content. Again, people aren't always ready to download the big rock piece of content. So you use all of that content that you can see there. It's those turkey slices that you use to tempt people to download, right? Are you hungry today for a tip? Okay, read it. Okay, do you want to download? No. Well, you keep tempting them with these turkey slices. Ultimately, you will get people to download the big rock piece of content. You then capture lead, right? That's a marketing qualified lead. You pass it to sales dev. Sales dev then qualifies it and says, yes, this is a hot lead. I think we can do a deal with them. They pass it on to sales, and you drive your revenue. If for whatever reason it's a market qualified lead, but it's not ready for sales yet, you continue to nurture it with more turkey slices. So you can tell this process works sort of over the course of time, and they continue to nurture people, and you're always sort of on in growing revenue. Quick success, if you're getting quality traffic from LinkedIn, right? It's a highly qualified channel, all professionals, you know who they are. You should see increased referral traffic from LinkedIn, and not just from LinkedIn, from specific segments that are important to you on LinkedIn. And you'll see that you do through referral traffic in Google Analytics or more searches for you, but you'll see better traffic. You will social engagement on all of this, right? So this is something where if things are getting, our benchmark's about 0.35 for sponsored updates. Seeing double that, triple that, 1% engagement rates, that's going to blow display out of the water, and it is going to have some sort of social proof attached to it. So that engagement will be a key factor in knowing that it's working. Then finally, you're going to see high quality leads. I mean, people can talk about the fact that LinkedIn is more expensive, but you've got to keep in mind it's a more qualified audience. And often see with our marketers that when we do not generate a lower cost per lead initially, we do see a higher lifetime value with the customers that we do generate. So if you take a longer term perspective on it, the platform is exceptional at driving high quality leads that drive more revenue and make everyone happy. We have a tool called Content. This again can just help you to understand what people are talking about on LinkedIn. We'll send this deck through, but if you're interested in this, please reach out to us. But we can tell you what IT professionals care about. We can tell you what marketers care about. It's a way to sort of power your content strategy, data-driven. And then finally, we do have some content marketing score stuff, so we can measure how well you do on platform, how you do against your competitors, and then of course we make recommendations on how to improve your content on LinkedIn. So we have a whole series of content. We've got produce Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn, which we just talked about, right? Which has a bunch of examples as to how to create great content and optimize it for the platform. We've got a deck specifically on thought leadership. Thought leadership content does exceptionally well. It's very persuasive. People often don't necessarily know how to get started. That's a great way to do it. If you're talking about demand gen, we've got the crash course to full funnel marketing. So I map content against the entire buyer's journey to drive leads. Also the crash course for lead nurturing. So this is excellent from a demand gen perspective. I'd urge you to download both of those. And if you care about vertical stuff, we've got the finance marketer, right? So if you're in finance, that'll make sense. And even one about sort of real-time marketing. How do you have a content calendar, again, is sort of mapped out for the next month, but also allows you to put in real-time content if something comes up that's important to your business. So all the content is available online. Please search for it. We'll also send you through this, and some of it is linked. Concludes the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks to everyone who's been asking questions throughout the presentation. The content's slightly longer than we had said it would at the start, but it's all really great stuff and very relevant. So we'll start working our way through questions now, and then anything that we don't have time for, as said, we will try and follow up with you individually afterwards. So the first question that we've had is around maintaining blogs and the resource that's required to do that. I suspect John and I probably both have a perspective on this, and do we have any advice on how to make that easier? And I think for me, as someone who has been producing content for blogs and managing a blog for coming up on years now, we're actually launching a new blog tomorrow. I think it's horses for courses, and there are a number of different ways of approaching this. LinkedIn's obviously a pretty large company, but when I first started in this role, we were a really small team and we were very tight on resource. And I found it to be something where you want to make sure that the tone of voice is very authentic and you're very clear about the topics that you're writing about, and that each of the people that you're bylining something to care about it and it reflects their tone of voice. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with getting some assistance from an agency or an external third party in helping to do the legwork, and that can be a really efficient way of getting around resource challenges.
Yeah, and I think one thing to just keep in mind is make sure you use the different people in the organization, right? So you don't have to write all the content yourself. Again, go to interviews with experts in your space, do an interview with your head of sales, have someone in marketing write a post, have somebody in comms write a post, and you can get content from all over the organization, engineering, IT, and then collectively you'll have a much more robust content marketing strategy that fuels your blog. It doesn't require any one person to do too much. Someone to coordinate that, but I would make it a team effort if you can.
Absolutely, and then the follow-on from that is just make sure that you've got a good sign-off process in place, ideally something that's pretty nimble and that you have real clarity over roles and responsibilities, so that it's not going to take you a week or a month to do that. And I found that that's a really great way of scaling our efforts. The second question is, how does this work for a B2B company? And I think my perspective on that is that actually it's really important for a B2B company now, more so than ever before. I think that one of the fundamental things that's changed in B2B is that our content, messages and things that we're talking about are visual like never before. I think, Twitter events, Google image search, and then things like the LinkedIn feed actually mean that as B2B marketers, we have a real opportunity to engage our customers, prospects in an ongoing dialogue and do that really well. And when we know how the path to purchase is evolving, it's really important. People are saying they want to have, on average, 8 pieces of content or 8 touches along those lines before they're ready to have a conversation with your sales team. So, if you're not present and not there as part of that conversation, you're really missing out on being a part of the consideration set. John, how does that tally with your perspectives from, the conversations that you have with clients?
Yeah, I mean, the final point I made is a really important one, and one I want to underscore, particularly in B2B. People are reading 7 to 10 to 12 pieces of content before they shortlist a couple of vendors. And this is because, the internet has changed everything, right? You don't need to talk to sales right away to understand how a product or a service works, right? You can now do self-directed research. You can talk to your peers. You can visit LinkedIn groups, right? There's all these places you can learn about a product or service or an industry. And that happens before they ever talk to sales. So if you are not in the sort of content marketing game, this is why we're talking about content marketing. If you're not in the game, you will lose out to a competitor who is producing content, who is always on with relevant stuff, that is paid in front of the right audiences, and is bringing those leads that ultimately are being passed to sale. I mean, the whole sales process is actually inverted to being one that is entirely by sales, to being one that is increasingly led by marketing. So, all marketers should be very excited about this, and particularly if people don't register on your site and you have a marketing automation platform, the marketers are the only ones who know who's visiting, what pages they're visiting, what their personas are. So it's a very good time to be a marketer, but it starts with having content to fuel your content marketing efforts to be in the conversation when people are reading their 7 to 10 to 12 pieces of content.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the next question. Hopefully that answered your thoughts or concerns around B2B. As you can hear, it's something we're both pretty passionate about, so happy to debate on at greater length separately. We've had a question around helping to get internal thought leaders started on LinkedIn in terms of building up their profile and starting to post, and whether or not that's something that we are able to support training on. It's pretty difficult to do that on an individual basis, but most of what you need to know in order to get started is in the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership. That was very much put together from the perspective of helping people to do that. And then we also have a writing tip sheet, which you can help to socialize with key execs or thought leaders at other levels in the organization to help them build out their profile completeness so that you feel that it's somewhat a destination that they and you would be proud of when people start clicking through to it. Cool. We have one around how far Marketo is integrated with LinkedIn. And actually we made some really exciting announcements there probably about a month ago at their event in San Francisco. We have a new solution which we took to market earlier this year called LinkedIn Lead Accelerator, which enables you to nurture anonymous prospects across the web using multi-channel. And actually we have now integrated that with Marketo, and that is available and ready to use. I'm personally not best placed to answer the technical questions around, but happy to follow up with you and to put you in contact with someone who is. Maybe, John, you have more perspective there.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is we are integrated with Marketo. We're also integrated with Eloqua.
Yeah.
So you can find information about that online. But again, if you have specific questions, please do reach out.
Cool. Question on targeting. John, this is going to be close to your heart. What metric? How do we target on LinkedIn? What are the sets? Is it by location, demographics, and so on?
Yeah. So I would encourage you to think to your LinkedIn profile, and that will give you a sense for what we can target by. But if your LinkedIn profile, we know who you are. I'm John Lombardo. I work in London. I'm a content marketing lead. I'm at LinkedIn. Been working for 10 years. I graduated at this time. I'm a member of these groups. I follow these influencers. I follow these channels. Essentially anything within the profile can be targeted against, right? So if your education and if let's say you're doing executive education, you can target people who are maybe junior in their career and try to get them their executive education classes, so they know their career. If you're in London, we can target people in London to get them to go to your event. If you're Adobe and you're selling marketing, we can put it in front of all marketing professionals. We can do virtually anything you can find on as a field on the profile, we can target against. So it is very robust. Again, I would encourage you to be granular and to be thoughtful, but not to be too granular, because again, we do see that people sort of make decisions by committee now. So pick a couple of targets that you're interested in, and then think about who else interacts with them. And if you target that committee, you'll also see great results.
Thank you. So I think last question, we've got 4 minutes left. This is one that I feel I can cover off reasonably quickly. So creating lots of different variations of a piece of work, how do you choose when and where to advertise each piece? I think my answer to that is that it's not an exact science. I mean, that's one of the great things that has changed in marketing in recent years. And I think a lot of us still feel that everything has to be perfect before we put it out, and we kind of keep it very close to our chest, quit perfectly, want to make sure that we've got the entire plan sewn up end to end. It's certainly something I've been guilty of previously. And A/B testing is your friend in this new world. I have had so many surprises over the last 8 years to 18 months over things that have outperformed things that wouldn't have. So a really good example that springs to mind, I'm pretty visual and I'm pretty design oriented, and I will spend time really crafting the right image to go with something. I've had some surprises around which ones have resonated and actually whether or not people actually want a template that looks like that. So I would put it out there, have a vision, have an idea of who it is that you want to engage. Think about it in terms of a logical order, in the same way as if you were preparing a PowerPoint presentation for a webcast like this. You know the order that you want to tell stuff in, and then be prepared to make changes and tweak it as you go when you start getting the results. Cool. We are at 11:58, so mindful of respecting everyone's time and knowing that we're all very busy. Thank you very much, John, for a great presentation, and thanks to everyone for dialing in. As discussed at the beginning of the hour, we will send out follow-up communications in the next couple of days that will have both the deck and then links to the resources that we've mentioned in it. I hope this has been a really great use of your time, and we'd be very happy to take suggestions on other topics and areas that we could get into in our next webcast. Okay, thanks. Bye.